Here's a very brief introduction to the Elevating Priorities NROs deep dive. So the initial question we were looking to answer was, how do we meet the needs of priority NROs in a way that is true to their status as priority NROs? So what is it that these NROs need? How can the global network best meet these needs, both at GPI and NRO level? And how can global Greenpeace work together to share approaches or techniques that can address all the challenges that these NROs face? So obviously we're looking at a very diverse range of NROs that are very different from each other. So the areas where we found of shared needs and concerns are very significant and form the basis of this deep dive. So what do we already know? So geoprioritization, which happens every few years, takes a deep dive into the situations of these different NROs and looks in details at where their strengths and relative weaknesses are. Responses from the Tech and Data Vision survey in 2020 have a wealth of information about where different NROs see both themselves and the global organisation. So we use these two sources as a basis for extensive interviews of a range of priority NROs. And we'll be sharing these interviews as part of our outputs, as we think that they're very interesting and useful above and beyond their use in this deep dive. So what were the shared responses from these interviews? So in the interest of time, I'm just going to concentrate on the responses relevant to our number one recommendation, which I'll then share. Obviously, there's a lot more detail in the wider outputs. So first off, there's already a lot of good things happening. There's lots of wins that are already coming from sharing best practice, and many of them are part of the tech vision. So we don't need to necessarily invent something entirely new. We can look at what's already happening in terms of sharing best practice and make sure that it's spread as widely and effectively as we can. So it's really a desire that already exists among well-resourced NROs, such as Greenpeace East Asia, Greenpeace US and Greenpeace UK, wanting to share their experience and skills as widely as they can across our global network, but maybe kind of lacking the support and direction to enable them to do this. And some of the key challenges that our interviews raised were there's currently a lack of awareness on accessible information about skills, experiences, and capacities in the global network. There's no process or system in place that can enable NROs to tap into the wider range of skills and experience of our network. There are some scattered and useful pieces of information, but they're not always easy to find. And if we can find them, they're not always the most intuitive or accessible. So for our recommendation number one, we looked at how can we best matchmake these skills and experience so that people who are willing and able to share them are able to be linked up with those NROs that really need them most. So first off, how do we build the shared spaces so that people can seek these skills and experience and ask questions in a more informal way and not need to know in advance who might have the skills which they need? So again, there's a lot of these shared spaces that have been set up as part of the Tech Vision project. So how do we build something that outlasts the initial set of deep dives and pilots there? How do we establish a practice of structured NRO to NRO support that is backed by senior leadership and organisational culture? And how do you build a matchmaking tool so that someone who may have no prior knowledge whatsoever could use it and know very easily where and who in the global network might have the skills or experience which they need? And a lot of this has formed part of the pilot project of this Tech Vision stream too. So I would also advise you to have a look at that. So that's a very brief intro, but obviously there's a lot more detail in our main outputs. So I definitely advise you to look through those in more detail. But thank you very much. And I hope you are able to look through the rest of the project. Thank you.